questions should also touch on the report that the committee presented or tabled. Honorable Member for All Yundum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. I am joining my colleagues to thank the Standing Committee on Human Rights and Constitutional Matters of the National Assembly for thoroughly scrutinizing the motion on the extension of the state of emergency for a period of 90 days in the Gambia. The Vice Chair of the committee had report to the plenary the recommendations of the committee, which I believe they have looked into critically. And as a member of the National Assembly, I definitely support the recommendations and believe members in the National Assembly will further adjust some of the recommendations for the executive to take care. Madam Speaker, we converge here today to take a very critical decision. It's critical because the issue of extending the state of emergency to 90 days for the Gambian people is a fear among the citizenry, and it's equally important for the executive and the government to have a breathing space to be able to curb the spread of the coronavirus in the country. And then the National Assembly is tasked to take the decision, and that is why it is critical. The 45 days period being mentioned in the report, Madam Speaker, I think is important for us to consider, taking into consideration that if the executive really had a package for the citizens that is going to keep them, because that is the slogan, you have to stay at home. Within the period of the state of emergency, we expect citizens to be at home. I mean, it will be difficult to get people inside their house without giving them what they're supposed to eat. This is very important. Madam Speaker, the regulations that we have, according to the report, have not clearly spelled the definition of each and every regulation that is before us here. And I have gone through myself. I realize that the definitions are not well explicit. They have not given us the correct definition for each of the regulations. They only put in the measures and what is supposed to be done in the regulation. I believe the ministers and their technicians need to be well prepared on this regulation and how to implement them within the society. When the first proclamation was done, it was said that essential commodities of foodstuffs are supposed to, the shops that are supposed to open. And that was right. But the way it was implemented in the community was wrong by the security forces. And I think that is why the regulation has to spell out some of the things that are supposed to be done so that the people can really understand what is going to happen. Madam Speaker, on the Essential Commodities Emergency Power Regulation 2020, the issue of the pricing, I have noticed that, as alluded to by my friend from Tumanna, that is the price of the broken rice and some of the commodities. You know, in the market here, at times not everybody will buy these products at bulk or perhaps as a bag. Some of the people in the communities will buy, you know, in piecemeal, like in cups. So the unit price of those commodities also need to be captured so that the people, because the seller of that commodity can use the advantage on somebody who did not know, who cannot divide the actual price of the entire bag and how much cups do you have in the bag of rice. At least that has to be clear, because if you are giving a regulation, you have to put it down so that people will know. This is very important. Somebody who is not educated will not be able to understand how much do they sell a cup of rice in the market. So somebody selling the product can seize the advantage and then sell it at a higher price, and then without selling the product in bags form or whatever. So we need to capture that also in the regulation. The other thing is the non-essential public places. I have seen something that worried me a lot, and I wanted to report that in the Gambia, we have about 60% of our population are young people, and then the sporting areas have been mentioned. Since this coronavirus pandemic started in the Gambia, when the proclamation came, we all understand that we are supposed to stay at home. Now people are no longer going to work. Most of the people are no longer going to work. If you go to the football fields, Madam Speaker, it's critical. You find young people playing football, and they don't take seriously about this pandemic, and they do not take serious of these regulations. But in the implementation of the regulation or the penalties, I think they need to review it as well and check, because, Madam Speaker, if I may read with your indulgence, it says offenses and penalties. A person who breaches a provision of this regulation commits an offense and is liable to conviction to a fine of $10,000. If you go to the football field, you have, a dozen of young people playing football. You know, even if you talk to them, they don't take it seriously. How are they going to regulate, or how are they going to take up that penalty on those young people? Because they don't want to accept what is happening in the country at the moment. They don't believe in the virus themselves. So we try to talk to them as National Assembly members, as representatives, but up till now, it's critical, they don't want to take it. So the penalty that we have in the regulation, I think we still need to further check them, unless and until we sensitize the citizens to understand that there is a need for them to stay at home, not to go to the football fields and play football, because they are not well sensitized. They don't even know, they don't want to hear. So we need to further go into sensitization more to tell the people exactly what they're supposed to do. That is very important, Madam Speaker. The issue of providing food package for the citizens, Madam Speaker, this is critical. If really government did not have any plan to subsidize food package for the citizens, I think we further need to look into the issue of state of emergency, because it's a fear. It's a fear in the citizenry that when we go into state of emergency, because the misinformation that the citizens are having is Gambia is going into a lockdown, which is not true. But how do you convince them to understand that we are going into a state of emergency and this is what is going to be applicable? If we cannot tell them exactly what they can hear, it will be difficult to implement the said regulations in the country. And at the end of the day, it will bring a lot of chaos and misunderstanding within the country. This is important. The other thing is, Madam Speaker, with the issue of transportation, the regulation on transportation, we also need to look at that. In the report, it is mentioned that fuel prices have been reducing down, but at what level? Because we don't know. You go to the petrol station, before it was $50, and now it is said to be $49. And still now, the drivers are asked to reduce the number of passengers in their vehicle, and then prices are also coming down for the fares. I think the government also needs to look into that, to subsidize the issue of fuel, so that drivers will have fuel within this period at a cheaper rate to be able to take care of the citizens that are moving around, because people also have to go around. They have to move, they cannot be sitting down all the time. So these things need to be looked into. This will help, because yesterday I had a discussion with some drivers. That is why I said it's critical. It's critical because some of them do not want to understand. If you ask the driver to reduce the size of the passengers in the vehicle, and yet still the price for fare is still coming down, it is not understandable. They don't even want to hear. We are at a time that every citizen needs to start sacrificing. But how do you tell them to sacrifice? How do they understand that they are supposed to sacrifice for the country? That is another sensitization that we're supposed to do. They need to know, and they did not know. So the regulations are here. The enforcement are put in the regulation and without sensitizing the citizens enough to understand how the regulations are going to be implemented. These are some of the things, Madam Speaker, we need to look into, because as a country, we are very serious about the spread of the coronavirus, and then we really need to take care of this country. In as much as we wanted to do that, we also have to take into consideration that, we do not have to put fear in our citizens, and we do not have to put them into a situation where, at the end of the day, things will fall back on us ourselves, because taking this decision is critical. We will support it, but then we wanted to hear from, the technicians, the ministers, to tell us exactly what is applicable for this state of emergency period. Madam Speaker, with that note, I supported the report of the committee, and I believe they have done justice to the report. They have scrutinized well. They came with the recommendations. All that we need to do is to add whatever we wanted to add and then move forward.